Alrighty, this is the receiver portion of my prospect evaluations. Now, there's one guy here that absolutely blew me the heck away. I'm excited to talk about him, and there are two of my guys here. So let's get right into it with the receivers. Now, this is Kyle Williams. He had a fairly low drop rate at Washington State. Now, he's got kind of a small body composition. He's got to work on that. He's got to add a little bit more weight. I'd like it if he was a little bit taller, but he makes up with it with some polished route running, and he's able to kind of win inside and a little bit outside. Now he does kind of run like fake post routes and fake vertical routes to kind of throw off the defense a little bit, kind of like a sacrificial X. Kind of not really, but we move into number nine, as that is Trey Harris out of Mississippi. Now he's got great ball skills at the catch point and more than a willing blocker in the run game, but he doesn't have the diversity in his routes to necessarily succeed at multiple positions on the field. He's going to kind of primarily be an X receiver. And then also, he'll sit down and zone on a curl route and just kind of stand there and have absolutely no spatial awareness as to where he is on the field at all. He's got to work on that quite a bit. So that moves us into number eight, Jaden Higgins, the first of the Iowa State receivers I'm going to mention. Big old catch radius, played all over the line this past season, but he was kind of stiff out of his breaks when it came to changing in or out of routes, and then didn't really have the boundary skills to compete, in my personal opinion. He's kind of what Rashid Rice is going to turn into. He's going to come out like Rashid Rice at SMU was outside, 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 and then Kansas City moved him in and he was very successful. That's where I kind of see with Jaden Higgins here. He doesn't really have a lot of success against man and press, but he does win a little bit against zone and can bait defenders into bad and costly penalties and get some extra yardage that way. Jalen Knoll out of Iowa State has the contested catch ability, excellent zone winner in the slot, but he was below average on curl routes. I want to kind of see that work a little bit more for a guy who's going to primarily play in the slot. He can play a little bit outside, and he's just like on frame size alone, he's going to struggle against bigger, stronger corners and kind of limited after the catch. He was tackled or went down on first contact majority of the time. So it's just truth of the matter. He's going to go down quite easily, but he is kind of a security blanket on third downs for a quarterback who maybe is a little more serviceable. So if a team has a veteran quarterback and wants a guy that they can just rely on third down and four, third down and five, and get me six or seven, Jalen Knowles your guy. That moves into number six, a big old vertical receiver. Not usually what comes out of Texas Christian. Usually we have the twitchy athletic receivers. Now, not saying we don't have one in this draft. We do have one in Savion Williams. But Jack Besh is a great winner against press. Very difficult to bring down. Not, again, not of the same mold as Texas Christian guys. Uh, does struggle a little bit vertically. He doesn't have the top end speed that we would like out of a X receiver, but he can work his way out of trouble in zone, and he's a little bit of a big gadget guy, like kind of like a Debo Samuel, but a little bit bigger in terms of he's going to get some screens, he's going to get some design runs, he's going to get some short yardage situations where he's able to turn that into more yards after the catch. Could absolutely see that with Jack Bech here. That's why he's my number six, and we move into the top five with Luther Burden out of Missouri. Now, he didn't have that great of a production profile last year, and he does show some flashes vertically, but he wasn't often tested well downfield. So we want to see a little bit more out of that. And then he kind of took plays off every now and again. And then intermediate zone coverage, he thrived in. I absolutely loved him at that, able to generate yards after the catch. So yeah, that is my fifth receiver right there. Matthew Golden out of Texas. kind of played all over the place in alignment, but he did have a contingency of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning as his quarterbacks last year. Just even if he had a little bit of consistency, it was just erratic because of just the constant switching back and forth between the two. Now he did have some focus drops as well, which aren't necessarily on the quarterback, but when he was in contested catch situations, especially in the college football playoff, he was able to move his body into a position where he could make a play on the ball and actually catch the ball. And now he's a little bit below average against press, but I think he can work on that a little bit more, just opening up his hips a little bit more. As we move into the top three, we got Tetaroa McMillan out of Arizona. Now, I really like his production profile, but the one thing that will keep me up at night with him is when he goes vertical, he's not a big success rate guy. Like he's not winning downfield, which is what you want out of a guy who is 6'5" and plays almost exclusively X receiver. And he's not super ridiculously fast off the line. And he when he is in contested catch situations, he's not relying on explosiveness. He's just relying on his ridiculous God-given wingspan. But on the flip side of everything, when he is in zone, he kind of makes space for a quarterback. When a quarterback's under duress, he was able to find an opening and make a play. He does have like his agility is on point to where he can generate separation using that, but it's nowhere near as good as my number two guy, Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, who is dominant against press and not very limited to the slot. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Lad McConkey. Doesn't have a ton of yak ability, and he does go down on first contact fairly often. He doesn't really break that second tackle. Does have a very high contested catch win rate, even though he wasn't targeted very often. This is one of my guys. This is a guy I'm higher on the consensus, but he's nowhere like Buka and McMillan are in their own tier, and then number one by a wide margin, without a shadow of a doubt, Travis Hunter out of Colorado, one of the best reception profiles I've ever read. Projection is not based on experience, and his um, route tree kind of consisted more of curls and slants. I want to see a little bit more vertical route running in post, especially if he's going to play majority of receiver, which I think he should. I think he's a better receiver than he is a corner. Best release package by far in the draft. I haven't seen much better. And then better success rate than DeVonta Smith and Chris Olave in terms of man coverage. And then the only guy to ever have a higher success rate against zone coverage in their final collegiate season was Calvin Ridley, like ever. So this speaks to how good of a wide receiver prospect Travis Hunter is, and I can't wait to see him at the next level. Leave a like and comment who your favorite receiver is. Draft time is very soon. I am wrapping this up, and I'm going to go live with, I believe, Joe and Ryan, and we're going to have some fun. We're going to react to the draft. We're going to provide analysis and whatnot, and we're just going to sit back, relax, and enjoy the draft. Have a good one.